I respectfully disagree with the brother Michael Jai White in his assessment of Tupac Shakur and saying that Tupac Shakur was not being himself or was not being real. Let's get into some of this straight game.
Life is like the cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy DELRAY, Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter, Straight Game TV. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button notification. Also, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And like I always say, if you would like to be one of the first people notified when I drop some of this straight game, please do me a favor and hit what appears to be that little bell notification right below this video. I'm going to get right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to do this respectfully because I respect my man. And we have a friend of ours in common that we lost a few years back by the name of Keith Famous, my brother Michael Jai White. Mike just recently made a few statements over there on Vlad TV, and I just wanted to address that in a respectable manner. And like I said, because I got nothing but love for Michael Jai White. I remember when we went to Keith's thing at the Century Club, and he knows what I'm talking about. We was both in the bathroom crying, and yeah, mourning our friend. And so I want to do this. So Michael Jai White was on Vlad, and Mike was saying basically that Tupac was basically acting. You know, he was being somebody who he was not truly, right? And I respectfully disagree with that, Mike. And the reason I disagree with that is when you look at Tupac Shakur, when you think about him and over his career, should I say, his past, Tupac did Juice when he was about 19 years old, right? And so at 19 years old, you're still trying to find out who you're going to be and who you've yet to become and all of those things, right? And for Tupac, growing up like he grew up, he was influenced by a many of things. As you look at his mother, who was a revolutionary, as you look at his stepdad, Mutulu Shakur, revolutionary, as you look at all of the other people who influenced Tupac's life from that perspective, when you look at that, number one, he comes from a revolutionary background. You know, Mutulu did what, 30 some odd years. Geronimo Pratt did 20 some odd, 26, 27 odd years, you know, and this is in federal penitentiaries. And so you would have to understand the teachings and everything that he grew up with, right? Now you got to understand what you're subject to growing up from that perspective when you grow up. Baltimore, Oakland, New York, and all of the other places that Tupac was fortunate enough to come in contact with. You pick up something from each and every one of those places as you go up, and you become influenced by the people you get around. Just like Ray Love had said that when Tupac came up north, up into Marin City, he tried selling crack, and like basically they were the worst crack dealers ever, and so on and so forth. That was part of his experience. And so I would admit that Tupac was Tupac Shakur, and he adjusted and adapted to the surroundings in which he was fortunate or unfortunate to be around. And he knew how to adjust accordingly, if you will. And so I'm going to give you an example. Prior to coming to Death Row, You know what I mean? Tupac, once again, as we seen when the thing happened in New York, right? He wasn't slipping. That wasn't Bishop and Juice. That wasn't any of those things. That was someone who was aware of the situation at hand, aware of the disenchantment that he had with certain people, right? And even though he was going to the studio to record something, right? He was strapped and ready to go. Even though he got robbed, you know what I mean? And the people that were with him didn't respond in kind like he thought they should. And therefore, after that, he kind of disassociated himself with them other than Man. And so when you deal with those facts, that's one incident, right? Ready to go. That wasn't about Juice. That wasn't about being tough. That wasn't about trying to be something that he wasn't. That was just about being ready, right? Number two, which we all know, the situation involving the down in Atlanta, right? They riding in the car, you know, Tupac sees somebody in trouble, somebody that looked like him, and he doesn't keep going. He stops and he pulls over and trying to find out what the problem is. That's not Bishop from Juice. That's not playing a role. That's actually being a responsible and productive member of society and looking out for what we all would hope each and every person would learn to adapt to is do unto others, or you will have them do unto you. But not only that, I am my brother's keeper, if you will, right? That had nothing to do with Juice. That had nothing to do with Bishop. That had nothing to do with playing a role. They were coming from another event, right? And he seen somebody in trouble. Now, most people would have kept on going. Absolutely. This is the thing that makes Tupac distinctly different from each and every artist that has compared themselves to him, right? Most people would have looked at that situation and be like, I don't know what's going on, but dude must have did something wrong and so on and so forth. Tupac didn't see it that way. That wasn't about trying to be tough. That was about caring for another brother. And like I said, these are the examples of factual situations where, you know, you can say, okay, this happened. This is how it played out. Now, despite all of that, dealt with the consequences, right? That came from trying to look out for somebody else, you know, caught charges behind that. Walked in with his head high, facing what would be his accusers, head on. You seen the video with him in court looking at them guys, them guys that he went through that situation with down in Atlanta, right? He didn't flinch, not one bit. That was not Bishop from Juice. That was Tupac Shakur, the revolutionary. That was the Tupac Shakur who believed in, I am my brother's keeper. So when you understand that, a lot of people have, you know, he changed, you know, I even heard Allen Hughes, you know, kind of mimic the same thing. You know, after Juice, he changed. No, we are ever changing individuals. I know dudes who I grew up with, who we never thought would ever get involved with drug dealing or whatever. And you'd be like, damn, yo, he hustle? He hustle now? You know what I mean? And so it's just the way that people change. And some of the things that they're exposed to, they gravitate towards, sometimes even though they might not need to. You know, I knew guys that came from, you know, 2-parent households. They grew up in a house, not in the projects, you know what I mean, or public housing. And they chose to get in on the other side of the law, start, you know, hustling and slinging and doing all of that other stuff. You like, and you ask yourself, like, man, why you want to do this? Like, you know, you don't come from, you know, where we come from, or the disadvantaged background that we come from, or surrounded by this in your neighborhood. You don't see that. You know, everybody in your neighborhood usually go to work. So I say that to say, in dealing with Tupac from that perspective, Tupac came from those places. Marin City, Baltimore, on Greenmount Avenue, New York, the Bronx, Harlem, all of those places. None of those places were had white picket fences from that perspective, if you will. So to my brother Michael Jai White, like I said once again, I respectfully disagree with you. And I know sometimes people want to say, based on your experience, and I won't, question your experience with Tupac, as you may not want to question mine. But like every time I, seen Tupac, or, we were fortunate enough to bump into each other, have a, conversation, chat, whatever, he always was strapped. Always. And it wasn't, the approach wasn't, that of something menacing or anything like that. It was just like, he was, a lot of times he liked to, roll by himself, and, he rarely had security. A couple of times I seen him, he had like one security guard on him, but the rest of the time, he was usually just doing his thing. And if, he didn't have security on him 9 times out of 10, he was strapped. So, I say that to say that, no, Tupac didn't change. Tupac was an ever evolving individual who was growing and still trying to find out who he was and where he belonged. Just like all of us have done that in our lives. You know what I mean? I'm not the person that I used to be 20 years ago, right? And most people, if I told them, what, and the people that know me know what I've been through, you'd be like, you went through all that? Like, absolutely. You know what I mean? So, like I said, I understand how they want to attribute that to Tupac from that perspective and being an actor. But like I said, once again, Tupac didn't come from a silver spoon, if you will. He came from a hard knock life, period. Bottom line. And everything that he exemplified, right, was a product or an experience due to that life. Even when he got money, he had said, you kind of feel guilty. You know what I mean? Because you can move out, but you just see that, you can't really change the people's lives around you. You know what I mean? It takes a certain kind of individual to be that introspective, if you will, about his condition versus everybody else. Because a lot of people get success and they just totally forget where they come from. Right? Tupac wasn't that dude. As you seen, at his house out in Calabasas, I mean, he had, what, they said 20 some odd people living in there. Because it was just different for him. And understanding and struggling that sometimes that he didn't have a place to stay. Right? When you think about that, that's an ever evolving individual. But a person who was ever conscious of his situation and the people around him. So I just want to say that to Michael Jai White, my man. I hope everything else is good with you. And like I said, Allen Hughes, with all of the conversations that he's had with various various interviews and things like that. Yeah, no, Tupac didn't change. He just evolved. Good, bad, or indifferent, he evolved. Your boy DELRAY, straight gang.